Context of White Supremacy. Gus T Renegade, Justice, in for another program to share constructive information on racism, white supremacy, what it is, and how it works. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into the program. Hopefully, you are not wasting time. Hopefully, every time out, when you tune into the C.O.W.S, you get constructive information that you can use to aid you in understanding what racism, white supremacy is, how it works, and suggestions, things you can do to successfully counter that system without creating more problems. Today's program, another example of using Facebook as a weapon. Again, I tell folks, you're going to be on Facebook, be about some business, be about something serious. It shouldn't just be, let's put some goofy pictures up. Certainly not pictures with me and another white person. It should really be about, I'm going to try to use this in the most constructive manner possible. And I've gotten so much great information from people who've posted books, films, just black people, non-white people doing constructive things. Someone posted the documentary film, Hidden Colors, the untold history of people of Aboriginal, Moor, and African descent. Someone posted a link for the website on my Facebook page. The website is hiddencolorsfilm.com. Again, hiddencolorsfilm.com. They posted a link. I investigated, and hey, you got a film talking about racism, white supremacy, where the guests include Dr. Cress Welsing, Umar Abdullah Johnson, Dr. Phil Valentine, Dr. Booker T. Coleman. Didn't need too much more. I was very interested in having the creator of the film on the program. He agreed, and I'm glad that we have an opportunity to promote as well. The film is being released this week in select theaters, L.A., Atlanta, Ontario, Canada, New York, Washington, D.C. If you're in those areas, be on the lookout. I will make sure we get information where you can check out this film if you're in that area. Real pleasure to have the creator of the film on the program. He is a New York Times best-selling author. He hosts his own radio program, and he is the executive producer and director of the documentary film Hidden Colors. Our guest for this evening, Mr. Tariq Nasheed. Mr. Nasheed, are you with us?
I'm with you. How you doing, brother?
I'm still learning, still being victimized by the system of white supremacy. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. I feel you. That's why we need more films like this to challenge white supremacy, to challenge the false ideology of white supremacy.
I agree totally. I want to hop in and see if we can cover as much info as possible. Is there anything you would like to tell our listeners before we get started? Anything you think would be constructive for them to know about you?
No, we can get started. We can talk more about what the film is about along the line, but I want to really hear from the people, and we'll learn a little bit about me and more about the film a little later. But let's chop it up with everybody.
I dig it. Before we begin, for folks who have not seen you, you are a black male. Is that correct?
Yes, I am. Absolutely.
Outstanding.
Absolutely.
This program, the C.O.W.S, Context of White Supremacy, I have unfortunately concluded that we are in a global system of racism, white supremacy. I use those two terms as synonyms, and I use the same definition for both terms. The definition I use is as follows: a global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white. Do you believe that such a system exists, and do you think that is an accurate definition?
That is an accurate definition, and it does exist whether we want to believe it or not. I mean, we can put our heads in the sand and believe that we should be all singing Kumbaya, which is a great ideology to have, but the reality is we're being miseducated. People are fighting for their genetic survival. We have to understand that, and the system of racism, white supremacy, is the ideology that permeates our society and our global society. We can choose to acknowledge it or not. If you don't want to acknowledge it, you will be confused, as Dr. Welsing says. Everything you think you understand, you will be confused if you don't understand what racism is really about. And most people of color don't know what racism is about. They really don't understand it. They look at it from an emotional standpoint when they should be looking at it from a tactical standpoint. And the thing is, we don't want to get out of the emotion. This is why this documentary is really the first of its kind on a major level that's going to be in theaters around the country. People don't really understand how this system works. We keep waiting on other people to educate us. That's just not going to happen. That's the one thing that black folks need to understand. Other people are not going to tell you, black, Aboriginal, Moor, whoever you want to call yourself. That's why I named the movie Hidden Colors, the untold history of Aboriginal, Moor, and African descent, people of African descent. Because the thing is, black people or people of color, we get caught up on these titles. I'm not black, I'm Dominican. I'm not black, I'm Puerto Rican. I'm not black, I'm African. We get too caught up in that nonsense. We're non-white. Understand that. If you're non-white, you're going to catch hell if you don't understand the system. Point blank.
Wow. If you will indulge me, both Justice and Mr. Nasheed, we have a guest that called in from 720. I'm just curious. We had a caller. He was a supporter, long-time supporter when the program first began. I'm just curious if he might be calling in with a question. I normally don't check questions this early, but if it's okay with you all, I would like to check.
That's fine.
Okie dokie. Let's see. The person who dialed in, last four digits, 7443. Did you have a question?
Oh, yes, sir. This is not a long-time listener, but I'm at a PWI, a.k.a. predominantly white institution as far as colleges go, and I encounter just a lot of BS coming from white people as far as them thinking that they, understand what it means to be black. Like one of my professors talked about how he knew what it meant to pull himself up by the bootstraps because he was dirt poor. And I tried to explain to him, there's no checkbox on the job application for poor. So how can people discriminate against you, if you're poor? And I try to get him to imagine if he was poor and black. But I just kind of wanted you guys to weigh in on how to explain to white people, how it feels to be discriminated against and how the system of, white supremacy can hurt us because they often don't want to open up their eyes. So is there a way to break it down to them?
And let me explain this. The whites, they know what's going on. They know the game. Our thing is black folks, we spend too much time trying to convince other people of racism. They know fully well what's going on. They know about what's discrimination. They know about police brutality. They're fully aware of it. We need to be conscious of it and do something about it. We need to educate ourselves about it, because running to them saying, hey, look and see what's happening to us, they're not going to do anything. They have the luxury of denial, and that's the thing. That is the major problem about racism, white supremacy, is the denial of it. That's the sickness of it. So we have to stop trying to act like we're convincing somebody what's going on. They know fully well what's going on, and that's what really whiteness is all about. Whiteness is all about not being subjugated to racism. That's what whiteness means. Their identity is wrapped up in that. So our thing is stop running around trying to convince people what's what. We need to get ourselves together, educate ourselves, and that's the ammunition we need.
Wow. I'm so happy. I'm normally nervous if a non-white person is asked that sort of question, like how do you teach white people about racism? I was cheering during your answer, like yes. I'm not trying to educate white people. They know the people who are confused about this are black people, non-white people. So
exactly.
I'm not wasting like a half a millisecond trying to educate white people in any way about anything. But I mean, they are the PhD experts on racism. In fact, if you want to learn about racism, you should just listen and ask questions of white people. You don't need to try to teach them anything about racism. Even a 10-year-old white person, I would say you should bank that white person is probably more informed about it than you are.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah, and the person that called in, I'm so glad you did call. Not the person I was looking for, but I'm so glad you called. I really want you to listen because I think that is a crucial problem with racism, white supremacy. Neely Fuller Jr., who I think laid the foundation for a lot of Dr. Welsing's work. His quote: "If you do not understand racism, white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you."
Exactly. And you know what's funny? A lot of black people talk to me about the film. The film is coming out this week, and they say, well, Tariq, I want to give this information to my professor at school. I want to tell white folks about this and present this to them. And I tell black folks, white people know our history way better than we do. They know our history much more in depth than we do. I had Robert Greene on my show, the author of 48 Laws of Power. That's one of the best-selling history books of all times. He has 48 Laws of Power, 33 Strategies of War, all these great books. Great author. And I asked him, I said, Robert, why don't most historians talk about the empires of Africa? And he knew, right without missing a beat, he knew exactly what I was talking about, knew which ones I was talking about, and said, it's racism. This is coming out of his mouth. These historians, these white historians, white scholars, they know about Timbuktu and Ghana, Songhay. They know all about that stuff. They just don't teach you, black folks. You understand that? When y'all understand that principle of the game, you'll be much better off. You have to educate yourselves. I can't stress that enough.
Please visit the website, hiddenColorsFilm.com. If you are listening at Blog Talk, you can click the title for the film, or you can click Mr. Nasheed's name. Justice, if you have some questions for Mr. Nasheed, your line is open. Please feel free. Well, looks like she dropped off. Hopefully she will dial back in while we're waiting, so I'm not being inefficient with the time. Do you have a target audience for your film? Who is Hidden Colors intended for?
Just really people of color. It's really for people of color and whites too, if they want to learn. Because I have a lot of white listeners and white fans, people who buy my books, and they say, "Is this movie for us?" Absolutely. If you have no problem with the myth of white supremacy being diminished, well, this movie is for you. If you're the kind of person who feels like blacks are inferior and you feel good about thinking that blacks are inferior, which is most movies are based on that ideology. Most movies involving black people are based on the ideology that the black person is inferior. Almost every movie you look at, like Precious, The Blind Side, all of these movies are based on the myth of black inferiority. Movies like these are feel-good movies for whites. It makes them feel better about themselves. If you have that mindset, you're not going to like Hidden Colors. Your heart will definitely be broken when you leave the theater after watching Hidden Colors if you think like that. But if you want to know about truth, real history, justice, equality, the movie's for you. If you want to step your history game up, this movie is for you.
Looks like, I believe, Justice got her line corrected. If you have some questions for Mr. Nasheed, please go right ahead.
Can I be heard?
Hey, Justice.
Hello. I actually have a few questions. What
Go
does
ahead.
the term hidden colors mean to you, and what is your definition of the term hidden colors?
Well, hidden colors means that a lot of history of people of color has been hidden. It's like a play on words. People of color, our history, our contributions to history and societies and empires around the world, it has been hidden. So that's why I named the film Hidden Colors.
Okay, and your definition is?
That's the basic definition.
Oh, okay. Why did you name the film Hidden Colors, and why did you want to make this film?
Like I just said, I named it Hidden Colors because the colors of the history of people of color has been hidden, and I made the film because we've been getting misinformation about people of color. Whenever we look at the History Channel or the Discovery Channel, we never have our history shown. They talk about the history of Europeans, the history of East Asians, but they really never get into the history of African, Aboriginal, or Moorish people. So that's the reason why I wanted to do it.
Okay. What does the image mean on the cover of your book, of your film, Hidden Colors?
The image is from a Moorish flag from Italy, and that's one of the things that a lot of people don't know about. Many people, especially black folks, don't know about the Moors, and we have a segment in the movie about the Moors. We touch on a lot of things. It's a 2-hour film, and that picture is from a Moorish flag. And again, like I said, most people don't know about the Moors. If you go to a Barnes & Noble's or a Borders bookstore, they really don't have any books about the Moors. You would have to order things online. So they've kept the history of the Moors hidden for a long time. They'll say that the Moors are Berbers or something like that. So I put that on there because we really go in depth about who they are.
Could you please give a heads up of what specifically we should look out for in the film Hidden Colors?
There's nothing specific you should look out for because we touch on so many different things. The one constant I say is just the truth, the whole story. You should look out for the whole story because that's what the film talks about. When we talk about the history of Italy, we only hear about one side. We talk about the other side. We talk about the influences that went up into Italy. When we talk about Spain, we only hear one side, but we talk about in the film Hidden Colors the influences of African people who went into Spain. So you should look out for the truth in that movie.
Why do you use the term people of color instead of using the term non-white on your website? Which, to me, the term non-white seems to be more accurate in the system of racism, white supremacy.
Either or, it's either a passive term or people of color is more universal. It's a more universal term, and whiteness. That's the term white, or calling people white, is a relatively new term. Nobody was called white before like the 15 and 1600s. So, it's just for the sake of conversation.
What date is this film coming out specifically?
This film will be coming out this Thursday, April 14th in Los Angeles. It will be out Saturday, April 16th in Atlanta and Toronto, Canada, and Sunday, April 17th in Washington, D.C. and New York City. And you can get information on the times at hiddencolorsfilm.com.
Thank you very, 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 very much. I don't have any more questions at this time.
Well, thank you very much, Jasmine. Justice, what's her name, Justice or Jasmine?
Justice.
Okay.
That's so funny. That's so funny. That is like two people in the world got that joke. Justice and I. That is so funny. That is so funny. Anyway, context of white supremacy. Let's hear a clip. Let's hear a clip from the film. Like I said, for folks who consistently list to the cows. There are a lot of familiar voices and faces in this film. This is clip number 1 from Hidden Colors, The Untold History of People of Aboriginal, Moor, and African Descent.
And I remember, in the late civil rights era, a parent had brought a child in and saying, these male children, it's always the principal, the teacher says he's smart, but he won't study. And so I said to this little 10-year-old, sweetheart, don't you want to work hard in school so you can help black people? And the little boy very innocently said no. And I said, why not, sweetheart? He said, because if you try to help black people, you will be killed. And he said, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, George Jackson. You see, now, I'm thinking IQ 265. Brilliant child. You see, who had observed what actually takes place and goes on in the society. You see, and it's just like Semites of the Jewish religion were not standing up. Sigmund Freud did not stand up and talk about anti-Semitism. They were hoping to become assimilated, and they did not want to be in the position of accusing the people who had historically mistreated them. They didn't want to talk about it. Freud talked about sex repression. He should have been talking about the repression of Semites. You see, but the word Semite means mulatto, half black, half white, mixed race. And they wanted to be accepted as Germans. It's just like black people wanting to be accepted as Americans. And so if Americans are made, American translate white, are being made uncomfortable with the discussion about racism, then we won't talk about it.
Context of White Supremacy. What are your thoughts on that clip from Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, Mr. Nasheed? Oh, sorry about that. If you want to start again, please. Brilliant.
Yeah, I was saying Dr. Welsing is brilliant, man. That's why I wanted her in the documentary. I was a big fan of hers. Her book, The ISIS Papers, that book literally changed my life. And she touched on something that's extremely real, that black people are so fearful of offending whites, and our history, beyond the context of slavery and civil rights, it is offensive. Because that's the only thing we're taught about ourselves, is that we had the civil rights struggle, we went through Jim Crow, and we were slaves. If we talk about anything outside of that, we get labeled as militant. It's considered offensive. We're labeled as radical. You understand that? So we have to get away from that fear of offending whites with our history, because the film Hidden Colors, we're not throwing white folks under the bus. We do talk about white supremacy, racism, but we're not throwing anybody under the bus. It's not like, oh, you crackers this. It's not like that at all. We're just telling the truth about who we are, and black folks have to stop being afraid to do that.
Wow. Do you give a definition for white supremacy, racism in the film?
Oh, yeah, we do. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, okay. Dr. Welsing. Yeah, Dr. Welsing is in it. When we break it down, trust me, this ain't one of those soft documentaries that will get right there to the envelope and then back away. We go ahead and push that envelope. We call everything out. We say what it is. I have the heavyweights in this film. I got the real hard knockers in this film. I got Dr. Welsing, Booker T. Coleman, brilliant brother. Dr. Phil Valentine, spits hot fire. Umar Johnson, another brother, spits hot fire. I got my boy Sabir Bey, that's my partner. He's in it. So we're in there. We're putting the game down. I'm in the film too. So I got people who were not afraid to tell the truth, because the thing is, there was other people that I wanted for this film, and people were scared. I had people tell me, like, man, I don't have security like that. I'm like, you don't need security. I mean, we need to just get out here and get this truth out there. So I've had a lot of people who are actually afraid to be a part of the documentary. And I've had people afraid for me. People like, man, you going to be safe putting out a movie like that? We got to get over that thing of being afraid of what they are going to do to us. You understand? Because they're already doing stuff to us. We got to start. What are they doing what are they going to do that they're not doing now? They're already getting us. You understand that? So let's get over that fear and just get the truth out there.
Yeah, I agree completely. I was curious. I said at the outset, you New York Times best-selling author. One of your books, The Art of Macking. I haven't read it, but it just from what I've heard in you speaking about it, it doesn't seem like it's seriously addressing the problem of white supremacy.
No. It's a totally different book. It's a totally different thing. Because I do relationship books. That's my thing. I also do relationship books on dating, and that's completely a 360 from what this is about. The thing is, I'm a fun-loving guy. A lot of stuff I do is tongue-in-cheek. The thing is, there's a time to have fun, and then there's a time to get serious. Back in the 1960s, many black entertainers would become activists by default. Ossie Davis, who was an actor, became an activist. Dick Gregory, comedian, became an activist. Muhammad Ali, boxer, became an activist. It was an unwritten thing that black entertainers, they took it upon themselves, no matter what line of work they were in, at the end of the day, if they needed to become activists for the community, they would do so. We don't have that now. People are scared. We have too many multimillionaires for our thing to not be together right now. We don't have no distribution outlets for films. We don't have enough things in the community. The community is just completely out of shape. We have too much money flowing in and out of the community for it to be like that. I put a lot of the responsibility on the preachers, a lot of it on the church, and a lot of it on some of the black leaders. So we got to take it back to the point where people, no matter what you do, we need to take the time out and say, okay, let's do this for the community. Let's get back to whatever we've been doing, but let's just do this for the community.
Do you think it would be accurate to say that white people are most to blame for the problems that black people, non-white people are facing?
Yeah, half and half. Half and half. I mean, their actions are not irreprehensible, but the thing is, right now, we allow stuff to happen. I mean, we can sit and say, white man this, white man that. And again, their actions are not irreprehensible because they've done some foul things and they are still doing some foul things. But the thing is, we allow too much stuff to happen. We allow it. We don't really take enough responsibility for ourselves like we do. We have a comfortable ignorance. I had my World Star Hip Hop is a website that many people in the black community are familiar with. Now, World Star Hip Hop, they're known for putting up some of the most ignorant videos imaginable. And we'll look at them all day. They'll put them up for free. I put a promo up of Hidden Colors. They charged me a grip to put that promo up of Hidden Colors. This is something that people need. But the thing is, if I was doing something ignorant, it would have gotten up there for free. That's how we think. We're going to stop thinking like that. If I did something ignorant, I can get on BET. I know cats at BET. The black media, they're not really trying to promote this film, Hidden Colors. And I'm a cat. I've been on television. I've been on all over television. But when it comes time to taking care of serious business, people don't want to handle that. So we got to get out of that backwards ass mindset and start handling business and stop playing so much.
Our people are very serious about not being very serious. Meanwhile, white people are very serious about playing hardball against us, and this hardball is called genocide.
Context of White Supremacy, Dr. Kamal Kamban. Perhaps if you do a part 2, you could have Dr. Kamban in the film. He is extremely informed about white supremacy.
I would like to check him out. I would love to check him out, definitely, because we are going to do a part 2. People are already asking about a part 2 because it's a hot one. This film is a hot one. I promise you that it's a hot one.
Wow. Do you talk to any white people in this film?
You know what? What's funny? It was a running joke with my staff. They said the running joke was, we need to get somebody white so black folks would believe it. And I was going to get somebody white until I had a conversation with Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, and she said something that kind of opened my eyes. We were having a conversation about Tim Wise. And I think Tim Wise has been on your show before. And I respect Tim Wise, and I like what Tim Wise has to do. Tim Wise is a very brilliant brother, very brilliant guy. But Dr. Welsing was saying that black folks look at whites, even if they spit the truth, we will listen to them before we listen to a black person who's spitting the truth. And that's still somewhat of a slave mentality. And that made a lot of sense. It's like the Tarzan thing. You know, you look up to the white savior. I mean, there's some white people who are cool, but there's some black people who are cool. I'm willing to give a black person who's cool props. There are a lot of black teachers out here, black scholars who need props. We give a lot of props to Tim Wise, and he deserves that, but Booker T. Coleman deserves some of those props. Phil Valentine deserves some of those props. Shahrazad Ali deserves some of those props. We got to start giving props to our own, too, before we just big up everybody outside of the community. So I wanted to keep it on a black tip. I wanted our scholars to break the game down. I wanted black folks to get into the mindset of respecting our black elders, so to speak.
Just a suggestion to the guest. I've interviewed Timothy Wise before. I have concluded that he is a racist white supremacist. He even admitted it, and I just suggest you should go back in the archives to go listen to some of those broadcasts.
I will check those out.
Did Dr. Welsing tell you that he referenced her work as pseudoscientific bullshit?
Yes, she did tell me. She told me that. Yes, she did tell me that. Yes, she did tell me that.
What do you think about that? I mean, this is a white person who alleges to be against racism, but then he references Dr. Welsing's work as pseudoscientific bullshit.
Yeah, and I would like to hear what he has to. I want to hear why he would say that. That's my thing. What's pseudoscientific bullshit? What specifically? That's what I want to know. I would like to know specifically what he thinks that she's saying is pseudoscientific bullshit.
I believe he covered that, but I might be incorrect. When we had a discussion about him referencing Dr. Frances Cress Welsing's work as pseudoscientific BS.
Okay. Again, I'm going to listen to the archives and see what's popping with that.
Yeah, we interviewed him about, I think 3 times. I don't know, but I believe about 3.
Oh, okay.
If I had to throw mine in, I believe he was here about 6 times.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he was here a lot. And we did cover that extensively, what exactly was pseudoscientific bullshit about her theory. And he did admit to being a racist on the program. So, I just want to make sure that's out for the record. I do not think he deserves any props. He is a racist. You should be regarded as such. He shouldn't get a pecan for anything. If you ever see him, you should be asking him, are you a racist? Can I get a check? It shouldn't be a whole lot of, yay, Timothy. No, because you talk about, this is the flip side of the coin. The lack of regard that we have and that fear that we have for white people. If there's shit, man, you really want to talk about the depth of how much time we focus on white supremacy. Dick Gregory was a guest on our program yesterday, and he sung a song to John Brown. Do you know who John Brown is?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The guy who started the slave rebellion, the white guy who started the slave rebellion.
The white guy. The white guy. He said John Brown is the greatest human being that ever lived. He said that on the program yesterday.
Wow.
I believe that is the flip side of the coin to that fear of white people, is an intense worship. I believe Mr. Nero would say glorification of any white person that gives you a slice of bread. a wooden nickel, smiles at you, rubs your head, has sex with you. I mean, it is atrocious. It's sickening because I've seen non-white people and black people in tears seeing Tim Wise speak at a church. And I mean, it is enough to make you nauseous that this guy, an admitted racist, can come here and just, non-white people who are very confused about racism and make them think he is the best thing since Jesus. And he's a racist. He's just getting money off of this and referencing Dr. Welsing's work as pseudoscientific bullshit. I mean, it is enough to make
I would love to talk to him about that. I would love to see where he would come to that conclusion. I would really love to talk to him about that.
Anyone out there, you get him on your show, you see him, you should ask him, why did you reference Dr. Francis Cress Welsing's work as pseudoscientific bullshit? Maybe that should be question one, even before, you did admit to being a racist, right? That should be question one. Dr. Welsing, pseudoscientific bullshit response. Like every time he should be in fear of going out to speak because he's going to have to answer a question about that statement.
Yeah, I would definitely like to holler at him about that. Definitely. But there's my phone is. I have another interview that I have to do. They blowing my phone up right now. But I'd like to conclude again. Everybody come out and see Hidden Colors. I want to do your show again, man. When do you do your show again? I want to talk for the whole. How long you do your show? An hour, 2 hours?
2 hours.
Okay, I want to spit some hot fire for the whole 2 hours. Man, I want to come back and spit. But the film Hidden Colors. Go to hiddencolorsfilm.com. Bring your kids. It's a PG movie. There's no profanity. Everything is real clean. You guys are really going to enjoy it. It's going to be an eye opener. This is something that it's a historical moment. You will remember this film for the rest of your life. And if you are not in New York, Toronto, Los Angeles, Atlanta, fly in there. Drive have a carpool. Get to these cities ASAP this weekend and check out the film. It's that important.
Groovy. Yeah, we would love to have you back. I'm sure listeners, they would appreciate, getting an opportunity to ask some questions. Maybe some of them will have seen the film by then. So, yeah, if you would be interested in coming back to speak, I'm sure folks would love to hear from you again.
Absolutely.
Groovy. We will check out the film. The address, hiddencolorsfilm.com. Thoroughly enjoyed it, Mr. Nasheed. I wish you the best of success, and we will be in touch soon.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Take care. Context of White Supremacy. Sorry about that, gang. I thought he was going to be on longer so we could get some questions from listeners. I saw folks with hands up. I didn't know. Life is tough. Hopefully he will come back, though. I will definitely follow up and see if he is, in fact, interested to come back and do the whole program and share some more. I will at least make sure I promote the film because I have a couple other sound clips so you can hear some of the other folks and what they have to say. Umar Abdullah Johnson is in one of these, so I will play the other two sound clips from the film. And, we'll be right back. So these are both from Hidden Colors, the Untold History of People of Aboriginal, Moor, and African Descent.
And that's why black women tended to get so angry when I wrote The Black Man's Guide to Understand the Black Woman, because it made us look at what is our part in the failure of the black relationship. What is our part in the destruction of the ego of the black man? What part of the responsibility do we have? It takes two people in any situation. It's not just everything was you. See, prior to The Black Man's Guide, everything that ever went wrong was your fault. I don't care who said it was, whatever happened, you did it. All right? And everybody agreed with that. And so I say we have no idea what it's like to be a black man in America. We don't know what it's like to just walk into town, drive a car, all of the issues you have to deal with. We have no idea what that's like because we are judging you by a set of standards that some other people have made up, which they know you can't qualify for, so to keep us separated.
Exactly.
A slave master is a slave master, whether he's controlling you in the interest of harm or controlling you in the interest of his own benefit. And unfortunately, African people have not been able to distinguish between a slave master and someone who is doing some sort of benevolent service for the sake of that service. There's no college, no institution, no effort, no corporation I know of funded by Europeans that in some way, shape, or form does not serve the interests of the European who funds it. And unfortunately, we have become so greedy for the help of other people and so dependent on white love in the form of philanthropy that we can't see that the funding that we're being given is being used as a noose around our neck to control our behavior. For example, if you take the NAACP and Urban League, both of them started by Europeans for the so-called interests of black people. They may fight for some degree of progress, but there's always a limit, an invisible ceiling on how far they will actually take the progress of the race. They fund you to control you. No European is going to fund any African initiative that seeks to make the African equal to the European. Equality is a sin in European culture for black people. So everything is done to make sure that whites will always be given advantage over black. See, white supremacy has two fists. The left fist is white racism against black people. The right fist is white privilege for white people. It's two hands. Okay? And what we fail to realize is that when Europeans fund black people, they fund them for their own destruction. They fund you to control you. In fact, I've come across some research recently that says the FBI and the CIA are actually funding black organizations, unbeknownst to the black organization, simply to control their direction. Because if the money you need for progress is coming from me, I can erase that progress overnight just by stopping the funding. The only way we will be able to achieve what we need to as a race on this earth, as was taught to us by all of the great Pan-Africanists, from John Brown Russwurm to the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, is to do it by ourselves and for ourselves.
That's so interesting. That's so interesting. And those both are from Hidden Colors, both of those clips, Miss Ali and Mr. Umar Abdullah Johnson, both are featured in Hidden Colors, The Untold History of People of Aboriginal, Moor, and African Descent. It'll be released in select theaters beginning on Thursday, April 14th. Atlanta, LA, DC, Ontario. You can visit the website and get information on the exact release date and times and all that good stuff. But that last clip with Umar Abdullah Johnson, when I heard it, I said, "Oh wow!" He said that the FBI and CIA, they are funding black organizations that work against racism, white supremacy, and of course, I thought of Homeland Security, Irritated Genie, Ayo Kamathi, and I thought, wow, that is a case directly or indirectly. Homeland Security is funding exactly what he was talking about. In fact, if Umar Abdullah Johnson is ever a guest on this program again, that might have to be question one. Not trying to promote conflict, but I definitely would be interested in hearing a response on that. Yeah, if he comes back, that's going to be question one. Make sure you hold my feet to the fire on that one. Justice, do you have any thoughts on the guest information he shared, the film? Oh, wait a minute, she switched. Sorry about that. Gotcha. Your line is open.
Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am. You want to speak up a little bit?
Okay. Can I be heard now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, my Skype was acting up. This guy seems pretty informed about racism, white supremacy, and I didn't get to ask all of my questions, but, that's okay. And, yeah, I hope he can come back again sometime. And I also have a news article.
Yeah. I will follow up. Yes, I definitely want to hear the news article, but yeah, I will follow up and see if he can come back. So maybe you can save your questions. Maybe we can get him back, and you can ask the rest of them.
Yeah. So this news article was from racismdaily.com, and it was published on April 11th of this year. And this one is a study. Adoption increasingly crosses racial, ethnic lines. And below the title, it has the same
picture of the white man with the so-called black child. He was adopted, I believe, and the white man is a homosexual, and we have interviewed him before, and
Terry Kelleher. It's not Terry Kelleher, is it?
Yes, I believe so. The homosexual that, and like I believe it has, and I believe it. Yeah.
Racial. I'm going to Racism Daily. Oh my Lord, it is him. That's crazy. Wow. I don't know what to say. Were they actually talking to him, or why did they pick his photo? See, that's what I mean, ladies and gentlemen. That's why I stay on my counter-racist grind. Yes, you are much more informed. That photograph is flying overhead right now on the Cows page. That is incredible. Incredible. Maybe he just picked that photograph, the gentleman for Racism Daily. I suspect that's what happened, because I don't see Mr. Kelleher in the article. I think he just picked that photo because a listener at the Cows. Great photo selection, sir. Great photo selection.
The article doesn't mention him directly.
Oh, okay. How are you, Nate? Groovy, sorry for interrupting.
With 130,000 children adopted each year in the United States, researchers find growing numbers involve kids whose race is different from their parents. The latest data show that about 40% of adoptions in America involve such families. Among children from other countries adopted by American parents, 84% are transracial or transethnic, says Adam Pertman, executive director of the Evan B. Donaldson Adoption Institute, a nonprofit research, policy, and education. Pertman shared these statistics as part of a panel on multiracial identities at a weekend meeting of the Council of Contemporary Families, a nonprofit group of family researchers, mental health, and when you form a family with kids of a different race or ethnicity, you become a multiracial, multi-ethnic family, says Pertman, a father of two adopted teens. The most common type of adoption in the United States is from foster care, which makes up 68% of adoptions, compared with 17% for infants adopted domestically and 15% from international adoption, Pertman says. The whole gamut of family issues is being influenced in a profound way by adoption, says Pertman, who lives in New York. There are Chinese culture festives in synagogues and African American kids with Irish last names at St. Patrick's Day parades. Pertman is the author of the newly revised Adoption Nation: How the Adoption Revolution is Transforming Our Families and America. He says the revision was prompted by major developments in adoption since the first edition was published in 2000. An immense amount has charged in the last decade. Inter-county adoption is foster care adoptions are soaring. A kid was returned to Russia. The Haiti earthquake was an object lesson in how not to do adoptions. Openness and infant adoptions really took hold and on, say Pertman, whose work focuses on the overall adoptive family. Gina Samuels, an associate professor in the School of Social Service Administration at the University of Chicago, has focused her research on identity development among transracial adoptees. A multiracial adoptee who has worked in child welfare, Samuels has found the goal of being colorblind, which white parents often espouse, may not be the best approach for them to take with kids of other races. Colorblindness actually creates disorders, Samuels says, because parents set their children up to believe that race doesn't matter until the children find that often race is an issue in the real world, and they aren't prepared for it. Her study of multiracial adoptees being raised by white people, navigating racial difference among multiracial adopted adults, in quotes, was published in 2009 in the Journal of Family and Marriage. She found that colorblind parenting might actually be more harmful than helpful to children. Adopting an understanding of equality doesn't require sameness. So for family members to be able to relate to one another, we don't have to be the same, says Samuels, who is part black, which I don't think there is such thing as part black and part white, and so. Her adoptive mother was white. He can't be racially different, and we can see the world and experience the world differently. That was the end of the news article, and that one was from racismdaily.com. And, yeah.
That is like a extraordinary example of refined racism. I mean, you talk about white people, they are throwing bombs in that article. I mean, just the terms, what they had, multiracial, multi-ethnic, I mean, woof, they were coming with them left and right, part black. What is that? Part black. I mean, that's just an onslaught. Like, normally it'll just be one term, but you got an article, they're just throwing terms left and right and promoting this total confusion. I want to get the female who did that study on the program. I think that would be constructive. If I heard what you read correctly, I also thought they did reveal some truth. If they said that the so-called colorblind doctrine and not speaking truthfully about white supremacy is more harmful, if I heard that correctly, I definitely want that promoted on the program hard, because I think there are a lot of non-white people, unfortunately, who do that, who say, don't think about race. Don't sit around and blame all your problems on white people. You get out there and do. You're just as good as it. There are a whole host of non-white people who teach their children that, and if that study, I'm in agreement, that is extremely hard. That's one of the worst things you can do. Rad, non-mighty, what you're saying. Total avoid. I mean, that is one of the worst things you can do. Even racists will admit that. I mean, gosh, Dr. Peggy McIntosh even said that on the program. It's just and it's really bad because it's not true. When you tell people that, you're not telling them the truth. Anytime you have to lie to someone and tell someone something that's not true, worst thing in the world. Worst, and particularly for young people, worst thing in the world. Worst thing in the world. I will follow up on that. I'm glad you read that one. I will follow up and see if we can get her on the program. Some
terms, transracial and transethnic was in there.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
I actually looked it up, and I believe
I'm transethnic. I'm gonna start saying that just to see what white people say. I'm trans. Like, what in the world? What in the... I just want to do that as an experiment. I'm just going to say that to white people. I'm trans-ethnic and see what they say.
So, like, transracial adoption or meaning white people removing non-white children, I believe.
That might be what it means. That might be what it means. But I'm still want to do my experiment, trans-ethnic, just to see how white people respond to that. Trans-ethnic. And
let's see what they say.
I'm going to track that term. That's going to be, I think you can do Google alerts for terms so that if they pop up in the news or something, you'll get a notification. I think I'm going to track that term and see who's using it, the frequency of its use. Trans-ethnic, that might be a good way to track racist refinement, some of the new terms that start being used. That'll be a good project. Trans-ethnic. We should maybe that might be something constructive to do for people who are attempting counter-racism. If you see a new term that you think, we should pay attention to this is something that relates to racial matters, white supremacy, keep note of it and just, be observant. When is this term used? Who's using it? Did they define it? I think it would be constructive if more of us were doing, because I don't know if anybody's doing that right now. I think that might yield some constructive results. I'm going to do that. I'm starting. Trans-ethnic. That's mine. Trans-ethnic. I'm sorry. I think I interrupted you. Justice, are you still there?
Oh, sorry. Whoops, I was muted. I looked up the term trans-ethnic on urbandictionary.com, and it says a person that is born to one ethnic background but seemingly belongs to another through their actions. Transethnics are usually the people that get away with using racial slurs around a white person that can use the N-word around a group of blacks without getting their A kicked.
Would you, if you can tolerate it, could you read that one more time? I just want to make sure that I did hear you correctly.
A person that is born to one ethnic background but seemingly belongs to another through their actions. Transethnics are usually the people that get away with using racial slurs around i.e., a white person that can use the N-word around a group of black people without getting their A kicked.
Wow. That is incredible. That is incredible. So, see, now, even that's interesting because they didn't say the logic of how they explain the term. Following the logic, that would mean a non-white person who can, behave like a white person, right, should be a trans-ethnic. If you have a non-white person who can function like a white person, then they would also be a trans-ethnic. But they didn't use that example. They used a white person who is, quote-unquote, functioning like a black person and can get away with. That is wow. Is that what it means to function like a black person? You can say the word nigger. Is that what it means to function like a black person?
I don't know, but there is a second definition for transethnic. One who is in the process of changing ethnicity, and they also have some sentences or like some examples of ethnicity or transethnic.
Can we hear some?
Sure. Famous transethnics include Eminem and Michael Jackson. But Mike, Joel is always acting black. What's up with that? Johnny, he must be a transethnic. That's the only way to explain. And then Michael Jackson became transethnic around the mid-'80s when his skin suddenly began to turn whiter and his nose became thinner.
Ethnic. Wow. That is so interesting. Wow. Wow. That is like a research project. This trans-ethnic. I would like to ask Eminem, are you trans-ethnic? Has anyone ever called you trans-ethnic before? Wow. See the confusion, white people. I mean, if I was confused about racism, white supremacy, just that term right there, you just let that slide by. What are we talking? What does that mean? Man, anyway, sorry, I could ponder on that for a while. Did you have other thoughts you wanted to share, Justice?
They also have one for transracial. The definition, well, I'm still on urbandictionary.com. I looked up transracial, and it says, a person that is born one race, but can fit into multiple races through their actions. Similar to a transethnic, except a transracial does not feel that they are supposed to come from a different ethnicity. And famous transracials include Barack Obama and Tyra Banks. Nicole, I can't stand how Ashley hangs around the whites and the blacks without anyone kicking her A. Sally, that's the advantage of being transracial. I heard she's even gotten into the Asian crowd as well. The second definition for a transracial person is a person whose inner sense of being whatever race and or their racial expression, their behavior, clothing, haircut, voice, and body characteristics differ from the race assigned to them at birth. While they may have been born white, they may have always felt themselves to be black. Some transracial individuals express their sense of race in their dress and social roles. Other may require pigment, surgical procedures, or hair transplants to bring their bodies into better congruence with their racial identities. In either case, racial identity has experienced by the individuals in the key. While many people confuse transracial and multiracial people, it is important to note that being transracial does not imply any specific race. Transracial people may identify with one or more races, or even all. Because transracial people do not conform to society's expectations for how any specific race should dress and act. They are often harassed and discriminated against. They face a multitude of obstacles in daily life, including safety and physical security concerns, employment discrimination, legal obstacles, and lack of access to important health care. That white guy sure thinks he's black. Maybe he's transracial. And this is the last definition for transracial. Transracial means that a person uses. Wait, I think I already read that. Yeah, I already read that. Wait, there is. Transracial means that a person uses medical procedures to change their race or attempt to. Michael Jackson used plastic surgery so the bone structure of his face resembled a Caucasian rather than an African American, which it used to look like. He also bleached his skin and altered his hair so you can't make it into an afro. So now it's white. Now it's white person hair. That was the definition for transracial on urbandictionary.com.
I'm just going to ask a question and my concluding thought on all of that wonderful research, on the spot research. What is white person's hair? I'm just that flat question. What is white people's hair? Question. Race is racism, white supremacy. Period. There is one race, the white race. That's it. Black people are not a race. The only race, the white race. And when you are confused about that concept of race, it all goes downhill from there. Because, I mean, white people, you see how they can do a master deceiver? You can do like multiple tricks off the same word, right? Like you come up with race, total deception. And just off of that word, now we got multiracial and biracial and triracial and transracial. Did you hear some of the foolishness in this report? Don't confuse the multiracial, the transracial. Now, these are two separate things totally. You got to be careful about it. What are you talking? I mean, total deception. Only thing you need to remember, the only race, the white race, race equals white supremacy, racism. The concept of race should never be supported for any reason, period. You have any thoughts about all of what you read? Excellent research again.
The word guide will help you big time. I mean, words like multiracial, multi-ethnic, and like all of those terms, I mean, you'll get confused. So, you know, just a suggestion, I mean, do not use those terms. And I bet it says do not use those terms in the word guide. And they also have, and on UrbanDictionary.com, they also have a multi-sex, multisexual, multiracial, which I have that one up right now. Do you mind if I read some more?
Let's hear it. It'd be great to have some clarity.
Multiracial, someone whose heritage includes more than just one race, giving them an exotic and unique appearance. If you're multiracial, sometimes random people will ask you what your heritage is. Usually, a multiracial person is either really good looking or really not. I'm hot and fine and multiracial. D. Wright. Jessica Alba and are all drop dead gorgeous. Why? It's because they are all multiracial. Yeah, that's
man, oh man, I am just shaking my head. Again, total confusion of racism, white supremacy. I was even so confused, I thought you were reading from the word guide, multiracial, and I was thinking, oh, we'll get some clarity, and then it was, you know, oh no, it's more of the same deception. But yeah, that's the same thing. You know, you got to be clear on that. If you are in any way uncertain around, you know, the concept of race, white people will bind you up quickly. Because they, I mean, you see, and it's going to be more of that. It's going to be more. They're just going to keep on adding prefixes and everything else they can onto. You're going to have triracial, quadracial. I mean, it's going to be all over the place. And then they're going to throw some gay and lesbianism on. Man, it's going to be all over the place. And you're going to see a lot of this at the White Privilege Conference out in there. Let's see. If you have anything else, feel free. If not.
Yeah, I just have one more definition, then, you know, I'll shush and, you know. Multi-ethnic, still on the same website, to be a combination of races, usually creating a clear appearance of multi-ethnicities. To be of a multitude of races, which can cause problems with self-identity. I am black, Spanish, Native American, and German. That's the example.
Man, only non-white people will say something that insane. Only a confused victim. You will never hear a white person say anything close to that. I'm a white person, unless you get them on the ropes. I think that's about the only time, if you are a victim and you seem like you're less confused about racism, then you will have white people ducking and dodging and say, oh, wait a minute, I think I got some Cherokee and this, that. But normal circumstances, you are not going to see white people do it. I'm white, period. Not all that, not 1,000 hyphens and I'm white. Next. You do not be confused. Race equals racism. White supremacy, only one race, the white race.
And actually, I looked it up. Multi-race and multiracial is in Mr. Fuller's word guide.
Groovy. Let's see if you don't mind, if you could read what he says. That would be great to get some clarity.
Sure. Multi-race, multiracial. Do not use these terms. When speaking or writing about the existence of any so-called race of people, always say that there is only one race. Actually, wait. This term is on page 248 and 249. Always say that there is only one race, the white supremacist race. Reason. During the existence of white supremacy racism, according to compensatory counter-racist logic, and as long as white supremacy racism exists, white supremacy is racism, and racism is white supremacy. Simple as that. All of the white people who practice white supremacy are collectively the only race and the only racists that exist in the known universe. White people who do not participate in the practice of white supremacy are non-race white people and or non-racist white people. The non-white people of the known universe are also non-race and or non-racist people. And, yeah.
When Mr. Fuller was on the program... Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. And actually I am going to look up multi-racial, multi-ethnic also, so, yeah. Well,
when Mr. Fuller... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't have anything right now.
When Mr. Fuller was on the program for the 10th and 11th programs, we discussed this concept of race. He didn't say the white supremacist race when he was on the program. He said the white race. I'll go back and double check, but I've listened to those broadcasts, and he did say the white race. Slight distinct. Perhaps the next time we're on, we'll get him to clarify. I might even have the sound clip because he did say the white race. And even if he didn't, I say the white race. I'm very clear about that. All white people are racist. That's what it means. It's not about calling white people devils or crackers. As I've said consistently, it comes down to what does it mean to be white in a system of white supremacy, period. And I think every non-white person should spend some time thinking about that, and you should come to your own conclusions. I have come to mine. To be white means you are a racist, white supremacist, period. There's only one race, the white race, period. With that, Justice, unless you have other things to share, I was going to check the phone lines, but if you have other things to share, we definitely would be interested to hear.
I do, but I'm still looking it up.
Let's see. We could. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, the term you're looking up. I was going to say we could hear from a few callers while you're looking that up, and then you can give a holler and let us know when you have located the term you're looking for, and we'll all hush up and you can take center stage.
Okay.
Will that work or? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. Let's see. My switchboard just reloaded, so you all have to hang out for a second while my page reloads. Let's see. While we are waiting, I thought I had a clip of Mr. Wise. I don't have it. Alrighty. Page is reloaded. Okay. What I will do, I'll just open up the lines for the people who have a hand up, and hopefully we can be, orderly and not have background noise. I don't want to make a lot of prompts about the background noise. Oh, and if you invest, thought this would help everyone out. I just neglected to do so. If you invest in the program, in the cows, if you invest $50, I will send you a code book. SenQ gave me this idea about a year ago. He said that I think he said white people do this. If you donate, they send you a book or something from some of the guests that have been on. He said you should get books from some of the authors. So I thought Mr. Fuller, I could support his work, and it would encourage investments. So if you invest $50, I will send you not a code book, sorry, a word guide, not a code book, word guide, which is, and this is separate from Dr. Cambon's fund, which we're halfway there. I gave the total yesterday with Mr. Gregory. We are halfway there, 244. The total I want is 500 to compensate him. As I said yesterday, I am not worried about that in the least. I'm real certain we will get the remaining 250 quickly, or I think it's 256. Quickly. I would like to have him back on as soon as possible, and I think he would. I think he would really appreciate that, to know that listeners thought enough of what he had to say to want to compensate him for his time working to help black people. Anyway, investments, $50, word guide, and we'll be back tomorrow. We have a program at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Central, and 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Dr. Cambon, he called me. He did a report. This will all be linked in the description tomorrow, so I got you. But he did a report in the 90s about how white people were arresting, just figuring out any way to arrest black people, to fingerprint them and to collect a database on them. And these white people just did this major study at the Drug Policy Institute. They have, I think, different offices in the United States. And they did this big study and found that the New York City Police Department spent some ungodly sum, like $75 million, locking up mostly black and non-white people, mostly black, over, I think it was marijuana use and something else, but they spent like millions. And they spent so much doing this that even white people looked at this and thought, my God, I cannot believe we wasted this much money practicing. Surely we can find a better way to invest our money in practicing racism. But anyway, they did this big study, and within that report, they had some of the same conclusions that Dr. Cambon had about using this as a means just to get black people's names in a database. Same conclusions. At any rate, Dr. Cambon sent me the information, and one of the representatives from the Institute, he'll be with us tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, courtesy of Dr. Cambon, halfway there to getting him back on the program. Thank you, listeners and supporters. With that, I will get the phone lines. If you called in and you have a hand up, if you could keep the background noise down, I would appreciate it. And no speakerphone. Speakerphone is really really bad. So if you called in with a hand up, your line is open, and the number 347-215-6071. I will check about the film first to make sure. Hidden Colors. Did folks have thoughts on the film and what Mr. Nasheed shared with us?
The words, they're not in Mr. Fuller's word guide, but that's too bad. Well, it's okay though. I might have to call Mr. Fuller on that and see if he can put transracial and transethnic and multi-ethnic in the word guide, because non-white people use those terms, I believe, and they get confused by those terms.
Justice, I want to commend you for your professionalism yesterday. This is 818.
Hello.
I was like, oh, you were a lot more professional than I think I would have been. So I just wanted to commend you on that when Mr. Gregory was being pretty rude to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I wanted to make one comment on the article, the first article that she was reading from Racism Daily about the adoption of non-white children by white people. If you notice, in that they say something about, they give an example of an adoption of a Russian child last year, and they don't say anything particular about it, which was a white woman who adopted the white child from Russia, actually put a note on the child and sent him by himself unaccompanied on a plane back to Russia because he was misbehaving. But the sentence immediately after Justice read that said, Haiti is an example of what...
So I'm sorry. There's someone talking. This is the type of thing that really irritates me because I just used quite a bit of time and energy. Now I'm having to go through and plug up lines. If you call in and you put a hand up, you shouldn't be having other conversations. Use your mute line. I think I've said that, hundreds of times. Use your mute line. It's just really unprofessional and discourteous. My apologies. I don't even know how you want to be referenced because the numbers changed. So my apologies, ma'am.
This is 818.
818, right on. 818.
Okay. So, but anyway, I noticed in that story that she was reading in the article, it didn't make a negative mention of the case with the Russian child being an example of how not to adopt, but it said Haiti is an example of what not to do in an adoption or how not to adopt, but it gave no details, and I just noticed the negativity on how not to adopt was attached to a case of where you would to a place where you would adopt black children from.
Double whammy.
I've noticed that on UrbanDictionary.com that they use a lot of curse words on here. So if I need to share a definition at all, I'll just I won't say it at all, or
I've looked at the Urban Dictionary website sometimes and wondered, is that site constructed and run by black people, non-white people, or white people? Because I notice a lot of things on there sometimes that strike me as being racist.
Same here.
Man, I wish he would have stayed. I wanted to tell him about Vicus's running with Tim Wise on Facebook. Tim Wise is a racist. I mean, he's an admitted racist, but nobody should be giving him any brownie points for anything. I believe he referred to Vicus as an idiot, and then said he called him a biological determinist, whatever that means. He called him a Welsingite, and he also said, he was just bashing Vicus, and other non-white people were like, you shouldn't criticize criticize Tim Wise, and he always says that every time he does a speech, he says that you should always examine me with scrutiny, and that you shouldn't take everything I say, and you shouldn't defend a white person. And he said nothing. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. That was pretty much the brunt of it. But yeah,
I think he said he was a waste of bandwidth. Like, it was a lot of name calling. It was a lot of name calling and a lot of just really crass behavior. I mean, for somebody who makes $6,000 to go out and talk, probably more than that. I mean, he's incredibly crude, pseudoscientific bullshit. I mean, I do think that's excellent work, though. Calling out Tim Wise, he should not get a free pass. He should be being questioned and called out repeatedly. So I think that's outstanding work. Vicus Reckless 2.0, outstanding work.
Never, ever, ever he should get a pass for anything. Especially talking to you like that and me. I mean, really. Definitely not.
Greetings. Can I be heard?
Hey, good to hear from you. Long time no hear, Atlanta.
Yes, this is 404 Justice. It is so nice to hear your voice, as well as 818. Hello. And Gus. I have moved across the country, so that is why I've been out of the loop. I've been unpacking and getting ourselves situated. But now that I've gotten settled, I will be calling in and I will get my donations together. So that is why I have not been able to send out anything. I have to wait. With PayPal, you have to update your address information and do all of that foolishness. So I'm getting it straightened out, and I will be back on my donation grind. But Justice, I have to agree with 818 yesterday. I was shocked when I listened to the broadcast with Mr. Gregory and the way how he came off. I don't know if he was having a bad day or what, but when he came off on you like that and said he didn't care about your age and how he went off for the question that you asked him, I thought it was very, very unprofessional, because I'm sure he has grandchildren your age, and he would not have appreciated anyone speaking to them in that tone. So it was very, very unprofessional and very rude of him to talk to you in that manner.
I would agree.
Yes, because you were very pointed in asking him about white friends. And as you said, Gus, he seems to be so white identified. People always like to praise John Brown and his children for what they did. This is what history is telling us, and we know history is his story. It's very slanted in white people's favor. We don't know if John Brown did all of these things that his family and everyone else wants to run around here and give him credit for. But everyone is always like to praise this white man and say he did such a great thing. And while discounting all of the contributions made from blacks that have tried to free themselves from this mess that we found ourselves in, but this one white family is always given prominence in everything and made to feel as the big hero of the movement. And I get very tired of it. The same thing with Viola Luoso, the white woman from Detroit that got lynched in Mississippi. Everyone has always liked to bring her name up, or the two white boys, Schwerner and Goodman, and they always leave out Cheney, the black man that was killed with them. They always like to put these white people names forward as being such heroes of the civil rights movement, while discounting what we've had to suffer as a race of people in order to get to that point in history. So it was very pointed that you brought that up and brought it to the attention, because I get tired of hearing him mentioning about white people as friends. They're not your friends, as you've always said, Gus. We don't have any friends. We have to treat white people as a group and stop looking at them as individuals, because they've all benefited from the system.
This will be an exclusive one-time. I will give an explanation for the cowbell. This is not going to be happening again anytime soon. One time, that cowbell rung because Viola Luisa suspected racist. Just saying that so I'm not name calling. Suspected racist. She was executed by some other racists. White people said these were racist. Some other racists, and I believe a so-called FBI informant was even present for all this, may have even participated. Anyway, she was killed. She was transporting some black people who were working against white supremacy, and one of the enforcement officers who was working on the case when they found her body and all that, he said that they found like something like a gallon of nigger sperm in her, or something crude, Tim Wise-ish, some sort of crazy remark after she had been executed. But that was the reason for the cowbell, the racist's comment after her death. Well said, Atlanta. Well said.
Well, thank you, because I get tired of hearing it every year coming up. We always get these so-called black leadership that always like to push these white people. And those are the four prominent ones that they always like to push. The Schwerner Goodman, Viola Luiso, and John Brown. They always like to push them up there as example of whiteness that needs to be modeled after. And I'm saying that if all white people were like these four, we would not have lasted or still be in the condition that we are in. These people are benefiting from a system. They have no interest in overturning it. Tim Wise included, making $5,000 on up for making for speeches. Why would you want to overthrow the system that's allowing you to lay this golden egg?
Pam, your line is open. The folks that called in, I did close a couple lines up because I was trying to get the chatter out. See, 4585, your line is open as well. Pam, your line is open, and 3193, your line is open as well.
Greetings, everyone.
Hello, Pam.
Hi. You know what? I was listening yesterday, and I couldn't do it. I had to. I just clicked it off. And I tried to listen to Mr. Gregory and, try to be respectful. And some of the things he said were very interesting. And there was some, historical lessons in it. But it was so white identified. I mean, it was almost like he was talking to a white audience at times. Like he was trying to get brownie points from white people at times. And, man, I just couldn't take it. So I missed what he said to you in Justice. And I'm not asking you to repeat it. I guess what I'll do is listen to the archives. But I wasn't even online when that happened. But it was really too much. But, at the same time, given his age and the era he grew up in, he reminds me of a lot of older black people in my family who grew up where integration was the thing. I mean, that's what they came. It was like the drug that they came up on. And even though they understand some things about why it didn't work, that was still their dream. So being with white people, being around white people, embracing white people is just in their blood, I think.
Well, Pam, if I may, the question that Justice asked that seemed to set him off was if he had any white friends. And he got irrational, to me, I think it was irrationally upset about it. Mm-hmm. I think he must have been talking about John Brown, and he said something about some white man doing this and that, and how dare she ask him such a question, and I think he said it was an idiotic question, and he went on basically demeaning the question, and he said he was not going to cut her any slack because of her age. But I noticed throughout the whole program he was continually cutting white people slack. Continually.
Yeah. Did you also notice that he kept trying to get us to empathize with white females over and over and over again? I think that's when I said I'm not going to listen to this too much longer.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear so much white identification.
Mm-hmm. But if you look at I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, A12. Pam, it's so nice to hear your voice. I've been going back to the archives and re-listening to the broadcast. But to elaborate a little bit more on what 818 was just saying and how we went off on justice, I don't know if it was on Gus's profile page, they showed a picture where Gregory was running for president, and he had Mark Lane, the co-author of the book, with him as a write-in for vice president. So it shows his identification with white people and how he feels that some or the other, as if though, and as you said, he mentioned someone with a Playboy Club and Hugh Hefner, how Hugh Hefner did him such a favor by allowing him, the first black comedian, to be in his club. So he feels as if though he owed these people something, and it's not the other way around, as if though they owe him. But he feels as if though he owes them something because they've allowed him in their establishment.
Right.
There were a few moments I think Gus could have played the I'm Black and I'm Proud sound clip yesterday.
We definitely could use that.
Oh, he might got mad about it. I'm surprised he got angry unless on a gut level he knew what she was. I don't know. I mean, it's such an innocuous question. Do you have any white friends? I mean, it's not like, I don't understand why that would set him off.
He could have said, and what he said to her, he said something like, when he said he wasn't going to cut her any slack because of his age, do you know how many books I've written? Obviously, you didn't take the time before this program to do the research and look at all my work that's listed. He went on that kind of thing.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, who would expect a 10-year-old to have read, or I'm sorry, you're 11, right? I'm sorry. Who would expect an 11-year-old to have read all of his books?
Right.
I'm much older than that, and I have not read his books.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to hang on. I'm conflicted. I'm very conflicted because I was very clear in what I thought about yesterday, but the front page does say the problem is white people, and Dick Gregory is not white.
Right.
And I guess I read his autobiography. I actually read Murder in Memphis, the book he co-authored with Mark Lane quite a while ago, but I had never read his autobiography. And that if I had not read this book, I probably would have had a lot less patience. I probably wouldn't even be stopping this right now if I had not read his book. And I'm just going to read a paragraph, and I was very clear about what I felt about, his conduct yesterday, but he is not white. This is just one paragraph, 187, and I would like to move to something other than Dick Gregory, if that is acceptable. The paragraph, he writes, the police seemed disorganized. They tried to break us up again, and one of them shoved a woman pretty hard. She stumbled and smashed her head against a brick wall and fell on the sidewalk. One of the SNCC workers couldn't stand that, and he turned on the cop. They dragged him off into a police car, and 5 cops climbed in after him and started working on his head and stomach. One of the cops was saying in a loud voice, mostly for the benefit of the other demonstrators, George, give me my knife. I'm going to cut the balls right off this little nigger. He ain't never going to do nothing no more. I'm hearing an ice cream truck of some sort. Mute, thank you. That's all I was going to read. I hope the ice cream truck did not detract. And, I think he is for sure. Anyone who has to write a book titled Nigger, definitely a victim of white supremacy. And as I said, I was very clear about his conduct yesterday. Moving on to non-Dick Gregory related items. Did anybody have anything to share about Hidden Colors, Tariq Nasheed?
I didn't get to hear the entire interview from the very beginning, so I would go back through and listen to the podcast. But I did see some excerpts on the internet about the show. Have you heard of the brother Bashir? I can't remember his last name. He did the movie Muslim.
I'm not familiar with him.
Yes, it's a movie that was done. It came out earlier, about a month or two ago, and it's a black it's a black director, and he's along the same line as this person that did the Colors thing, where he is doing their own self-promotion, going out and doing it. And he would be a good candidate. I would see if I could get you his information and pass it on to you to have on the show to show how he went about, and he did it himself instead of going through the usual Hollywood channels to get funding in order to put together his movie and to promote it.
I didn't see the. This is 3193. I didn't see the. I saw Hidden Colors. I didn't see the movie. I saw the excerpts on the internet, like the other caller did. I saw Dr. Cress Welsing explain a few things, and I saw Shahrazad Ali on there, and I found her to be an interesting character, and I started doing more research on her, and the book that she's written for the Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Woman, and then vice versa. So I kind of found that interesting as well.
Well, Shahrazad has been around for a long time, since back in the 80s. I've known of her. And she's always been trying to tell women to respect ourselves as well, black women, as well as to respect the black man. And she's written a lot of those books. She started out in Philly. And I believe she's in Chicago right now. That's where she's headquarters right now. I don't know if she moved back to Philly. But she's one of the first sisters, along with Sister Soldier, that started, to uplifting the black man and the black woman instead of just allowing yourself to be degraded in the media as well as in person.
Any of the other folks that came on, did you all have any thoughts about the film or any of what Mr. Nasheed shared, or the news items, I guess, as well?
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Hey, I wanted to pretty much get my opinion on the question the lady asked about the Urban Dictionary, which was it run by black, white, black or non-white? My opinion was, if you listen to a lot of the description when it came to breaking down the meaning of the word, it sounded very racist in itself, saying Sally had a problem with non-race, with a girl being multi-ethnical or multi-racial, and Susie explained to her what it was. And I really just noticed that, for that question to be asked, I think it's definitely run by, whites. If you break down or listen to everything with Sally and John or Sally and Sam, and it just very, white names that had an issue with, the multiracial, the multi-ethnic people. And that's what I took from that when I heard that. Like, there's no way this could be written by a black person, with these kind of, descriptions of the word. So I just wanted to give that, if they want to agree with that, if they listen to what Justice was saying, it just sounded very, I don't know, use a racist word, or, crackerish, or, white. So that's just my opinion.
I agree. Every time I've seen a word on the Urban Dictionary that refers to black people, or it has a reference to black people, it's always been negative.
It's always negative, and it's not like, it was even a positive defining of the word. It was like, Sally, why does, Keisha like all these black people? Oh, and Billy said, oh, she's just multi-racial. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, why is it Sally and Billy? You know what I mean? Like, it didn't describe it in a way to where it was constructive. It sounded very negative. So that's just what I took from that. There's no way it could be run by anybody black or from an urban area, because they wouldn't have an issue, describing the word. It just sounded very negative. So that was what I took from that.
Yeah, there's also a definition. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I'm fine. I just wanted to get that out and see if anybody thought the same thing, because all I kept hearing every time she would, get that part is like Sally had an issue and Billy had an issue, and those are clearly not, our names. So that was my opinion.
Yeah, and I've noticed on that site as well, if you look up a term, there's something on there that says YouTube nigger, and then the definition it has of somebody who has to always be right about something on YouTube, and then they give an example, and I think the example from reading it sounds like it's supposed to be a black person or someone, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm remembering it correctly, or someone who's supposed to be so-called Afrocentric. If you just go to that site and you look up that terminology, it does very much seem like a white supremacist site to me, very much racist.
Gus, just a suggestion. I would like to have Sister Soldier on the program. It seems like she's very informed, and she's trying to get rid of racism, white supremacy.
I would too. There's a listener in, I believe, the Netherlands. I believe he's a black male, non-white male. He's been listening since pretty much the very beginning, and he suggested her. Some other people have. I've emailed. I've called. I don't know any means of getting in touch with her. If anyone out there has contact information, let me know. I visited her website and all that, and I have not been successful in my attempts thus far. So anyone listening, if you have help in that area, I would appreciate it. And I definitely, I think it would be very constructive. The children, black children at Port Huron in Michigan, where the threat took place, I would definitely enjoy having them on the program. I think it would be very constructive to hear from them. So if anyone can assist with that, I would appreciate it. We have 9 minutes left in the program. If you are interested in listening after the live stream ends, you should call now. The number is 347-215-6071, 347-215-6071. I believe Mr. Williams is on the line, and the person from a blocked number. If you all could watch the background noise, I would appreciate it. Thank you. But your lines are open.
Gus, is what's the Sister Soldiers? What's her website?
I don't know it off the top of my head. I think if you Google her name, it'll probably be one of the first sites that pops up. If that doesn't work, let me know if that doesn't work. But yeah, I think you'll find it that way.
Okay.
Okay. If I can be heard, I heard her on an interview on yesterday. She did a live interview in New York yesterday, and with the King Simon, he might be able to get in contact with her if he still does that promotion work, because she did an interview on KISS FM in New York with Bob Slade. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Well, if you all are not on the East Coast, you wouldn't be too familiar with Bob Slade. But she did a live interview with him on yesterday to promote her book, the Midnight Series book. And she left her contact information with them. If I can scurry and if I could come across that information, I will go ahead and send you an email, Gus, with that information. I may need to change the subject. I don't know if any of y'all watched the Al Sharpton on MSNBC yesterday?
No. No, I didn't.
Okay, because
I haven't seen it online.
Yeah, it's online because, of course, he had his Measuring the Movement, his 20th anniversary celebration for his organization. And, of course, the president showed up there and gave a speech sometime there last week. And, of course, the white people like to see two black people go at it, so they had him and Cornel West was going at an interview arguing over the president and his policies as it affects black America. And, of course, the moderator of the show was a white man, Ed Schultz, who's on MSNBC, and he was the moderator on there between these two black men going at it over this other non-white black person in the White House. So it was very...
Can I be heard?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, that's the point I wanted to make. In war, you hear a lot of different, there's a lot of different weaponries and tools. And one of the tools racists use is what I call either a deflector or a something that something that will if you shoot a bullet at them or if you point a gun at them, you end up pointing at yourself, but you won't. Basically, a type of hypnotism where you will think that you're pointing the gun at an enemy, but you're really pointing at yourself. Or if you have any type of weapon like a knife or something, and you go in for an attack, and from the pain or from the trauma, you realize that you have just sliced your own artery. And I see that a lot in black people, where they will, the problem is white people, and what will happen is you will end up talking about, black people or non-white people, and I think that's an incredible and important weapon, and I think that if you don't identify it, you can't codify around it. That this is philosophy, or it could be call it judo or whatever, where you use your own momentum is used against you. And I think that this technique and this piece of weaponry is well developed, and I think that we need to recognize that and codify against that immediately.
I'm experiencing some. Oh, can I be heard?
Yes.
Okay. I'm experiencing a great deal of technical difficulties. I was disconnected. I couldn't dial back in. The host line is currently occupied. I'm not able to dial back in on the host line, so, suspected racist interference, to be expected. I'm not really sure what might happen after the next 2 minutes. This has happened before, and nothing happened. The program went the full 3 hours, no big deal. It happens other times where we got disconnected at some point, so just a heads up. If something wacky happens, blame white people. And hi, Ripley and Just Jones. See you all calling in. Good to hear from you, 909 as well.
Any suggestions on basically codifying against that particular? Oh, before I say that, I just want to talk about, I guess, the documentary just a little bit and say that I know people that try to have done documentaries and whatnot, and it's difficult. That's a difficult project from what I've seen. I mean, it's so easy to go wrong. I guess that's a part of the deflection weaponry. It's like you start off with one premise, one agenda, and it ends up something else. So just to take on such a thing, I think I respect them for that, and I'll can't wait to see the movie.
Yeah, I'm hoping it comes out on DVD because it doesn't look like it's going to play anywhere near me.
I'll see if it's on bootleg.
Can it be heard?
Mm-hmm.
Peace. This is 561. It's my first time calling. Wonderful show. I've been listening for a couple of months. Really appreciate all of the input from everyone. One of the things I think that's important when taking stock in our effectiveness in codifying and defeating white supremacy is the awareness of something that Gus has mentioned many times in relation to, measuring your words for their effect of is this going to benefit or somehow be a detriment to sometimes our own self-understanding and personal understandings of white supremacy, or sometimes the emotional aspects that was displayed by Dr. West and Al Sharpton. And it is always to the delight of oppressors to see us in this light. And when I saw the rage that I never really saw come forth from Dr. West in that manner, and he is someone who intellectually I've always admired, yet I saw an emotional break in him in that dialogue with Al Sharpton that I found surprising, and it seemed to me to kind of resonate with a disorder. I'm sure all of us have heard of post-slavery, post-traumatic slave disorder, and that seems to be a very real threat to us as a populace and as a folk who are striving for victory over this system. That we should guard our words, guard our emotions, and measure what we're saying intellectually to see whether, first, how it's being, how it's resonating within our own moral and ethical compasses, at the same time giving even more credence to how the enemy is hearing it. And I was just, want to add that because this is a long fight, a long battle, and it seems that we really must guard our emotions and make sure that we are speaking constructively and speaking with a sense of purpose and clarity, and never to be goaded emotionally into fights against each other, because as the website resonates or says, the problem is white people and it's not us. That's all I want to ask. Thanks.
Thank you for calling, sir. Glad that was, if it was your first time calling in, it's well said, first time. It's glad you could finally tune in for a live broadcast. The person that dialed in 4462, your line is open, 4462. Again, I don't know, things might crash, so, if you have something to say, you should get it out. That you reminded me when we had the program, Pam and I, this past Friday, and we were talking about, how to function in the most constructive manner when you are around white people. Using words, I think one of the things that I wished I had thrown in, and it was kind of a play off 909. He had said before, I'm not interested in fighting a white person all day. I'm not interested in brawling and, having to be all tired and huffing and puffing fighting some white person. Like, I want this to be over and done as quick as possible. And I have great respect for that. To me, that's just efficiency. I want to be efficient, whatever we're doing. If it's counterviolence, using words, whatever we're doing, I want to do it efficiently. The quickest way possible from A to B. What are we trying to accomplish? Let's get there the quickest way possible. And I take that approach, especially with white people. If it's words, man, white people, they got, man, what is it? I got to get my sound effect. Let's see. There's so many of them. Yes, here we go. Thank you,
You're
Justice.
just saying just buckets and buckets of words.
You will be drowned in transracial, transethnic. They will be all over the place. I like being as efficient as possible with words when I speak to white people. And that means knowing when to not speak. I think a lot of us get in trouble speaking when there's no need for us to say anything. That is, I think, a big skill. If you can learn when to speak and to be effective when you speak and when not to speak, man, I think you would make major leaps. A big part of of codification, counter-racism is knowing when to be quiet. real important. And I can give you a real recent illustration dealing with the suspected racists, saying that just not to name call, at Blog Talk. The gentleman I was speaking with, I asked him a simple question. Is there another person I can speak with about this problem? And he wouldn't answer. Is there another person I can? Same thing I do on the program. I wish I had recorded it. I thought it was great codification. And he was getting upset, and I said, okay, if you're telling me there's no one else that I can speak to solve this problem, who is your supervisor? And he told me a supervisor. I said, okay, can you get your supervisor for me, please? And he said, what? You don't want to talk? I thought we were going to try and work this out. And I mean, this went on and on. I did not say a word. And he finally, after he recognized that I wasn't speaking, he said, oh, you're just not going to talk. I said, you're going to get your supervisor? Oh, I already got it. She said, oh, okay. And nothing else to say. I have nothing else to say. You have done what I need. Thank you. I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to squabble with you. Thank you. And if more of us could just pick out when to be quiet. You don't necessarily need to respond to white people all the time. Know when to be quiet. Major strides. I strive for efficiency. I'm trying to get this problem solved as quick as possible, and that is a whole other conversation about fashioning your words to be as efficient as possible. That's a whole other conversation, but definitely important, just knowing when to be quiet. And I will do that now, pressing mute.
Can I be heard?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that there's a myth that black people are an emotional people as opposed to white people being emotional. And I find that in my experiences that most white people are probably far more unstable emotionally than the average black person. Yeah, what does everybody else think?
Interesting.
I mean, it's true, though. I mean, I wherever I go, I see the coupling of a mentally strong black person who is friends with a white person who has drinking problems, gambling problems. This is all over the place. Even in relationships where people are married or whatever, that's normally the case. And I remember a lady was saying she's having sex with a white person, about to marry a white person. She was saying, when we was talking about white people, she was saying that white people are very depressive people, and that the man that's going to become her husband gambles and does a lot of things that just demonstrates that. The world is against him. They're far more emotional than we really realize and we really think about. Everyone should just observe that and begin to stick to that. We're emotional, but they're unstably emotional. Their emotions cause genocide and slavery. And you look at feudal Europe. I mean, look at the Roman Empire, the Greeks. I mean, nothing but wars. Yeah. They're emotional people. They're very emotional, more emotional than we are.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I mean, certainly. I mean, growing up, where I am anyway, there's not. I mean, I guess there's a individual mentality of individual. I guess tenacity to get what you want out of life. But if you run into a white person, they kind of expect more things to be handed to them rather than them working for it. And if you think about it, when they don't get what they want, they have three methods. They either try and deceive you and trick your way into getting what they want from you, then they try and, use money, and then they try and use violence. So, they're very emotionally unbalanced because, these people, you interact with these people all over the world, and they'll tell you the same story. First, they try to talk to us and say that we want this and try to convince us. Then they try to use money, and then they had violence. all over the world, and that's just been history.
Yeah, I think they're I think they're so repressed that and the instability from them being so repressed and so self-deceiving and so deceptive, I think makes them erupt and explode because they have so many. I agree that they have more emotional and mental instabilities, and I think a lot of that comes from having so many secrets and having so many false beliefs and so many false ways that they're easily threatened.
That doesn't sound logical to me at all. Mm-hmm. Emotions, we all have emotions. What I ask myself is, whose emotions are working for them and whose emotions are not working for them? Instability doesn't sound like the most powerful organized group on the planet. We have high blood pressure. You know, that emotions are when you have a high rate, your heart is beating fast, your breathing becomes shallow, and all of that energy is not focused. White people, they have emotions, which is high heart rate, their breathing becomes deep or shallow or whatever, and they focus those emotions and they get the job done. So, it's just a ineffective way to use your emotions compared to a more effective way to use your emotions, and white people win that hands down.
I disagree. I mean, the average white person is on drugs, pills, alcohol, gambling, prostitution. I mean, we're stressed out because of only what they do to us. You know, they're stressed out because of what they are. That's just it. They're inadequate. I mean, that's all I see. I mean, from the time I've been a young child to now, about 30 years of life, this has been a standard thing. It's very emotionally fragile people. Even Michael Bradley that was on the cow, he was very sensitive to everything that Gus had asked. The guy that wrote Melanin Apocalypse, I mean, this is a standard thing. Oh, my God, I can't believe you're treating me like this. You know, 10 wives do the same thing. They crack up. They snap. You say the right thing, you know.
Yeah, I can see both of your points. You know, I guess I can see that they obviously have control to the degree that they've managed to control everybody else. But I think underneath that control is a lot of instability and a lot of mental illness and a lot of spiritual illness. So I do think that they have a lot of repressed emotions that come out in serial killing, that come out in mass murder, that come out in genocide, that come out. I mean, you think about it. The people that would create a system like this, a wicked system like this, I wouldn't call them stable. I would call them organized, but I wouldn't call them stable.
But I think in the midst of their, I think it goes both ways. They're emotional. They depress that emotion by, doing things with no emotion. But after it reaches the surface, they snap. And I think, when it applies to them believing, for worship and money and things like that, I think some of us grew up so dirt poor and we found ways to survive. They go from 50 million to 40 million jump out the window. When it comes, their reality is different than ours, and the emotion surges. I think from kids we are emotional, but it's a healthy emotion. They're emotional, it's unhealthy, and it's so blocked in the beginning, but once it hits the curb and you realize the real truth of what's going on, they immediately jump to suicide, they blow the kids' heads off. Even the emotion, if you think about some of them who have killed their children, hid their children, then went on the news and, blamed it on black people, caused this mass hysteria, gave out rewards for it, knowing they killed their children. To me, that's so much emotion, that they haven't dealt with, that it drives them crazy. So
what about the lady that put the... I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm definitely listening.
I remember the lady that splashed her own face with
there you go.
Lye or something.
Face.
And
that's emotion. That's emotion, whether it be hatred or whatever it is. It unleashes, and there's no ever an apology afterwards. Their biggest thing not to deal with is death. They don't apologize anything. They rather just die. And I just sit back. I think they're very, very, very emotional. But in the midst of most things they're doing, they're using less emotion. You know, but when they act out in some ways, they are very emotional. If you call them, they found they're wrong, they're emotional. You know, they're just emotional.
Or maybe it's a lack of a moral compass. I think there is some deficiency in terms of their ability to have a normal conscience collectively.
Yeah.
You know, but I see what 909 is saying too. You know, that it's kind of funny to claim that their emotions, they're so unstable when they've managed to organize to the degree that they have. So to me, it's kind of like a mixed bag. I can see the great extreme of instability, but then I can see when they need to come together and take care of a job, they know how to do that.
Which is the point. Which is the point. That is to me. I mean, that's the point. You know, I mean, when you're talking about interacting with white people in general, I mean, they are the king and queens of calm and cool. You know, now underneath they may be just in total turmoil, but they, like 909 say, they get the job done, and I think that's what we got to deal with. You know, they may be whatever's going on with them, but man, I mean, it works for them.
Yeah, definitely different.
I
a lot of people are psychotic or functional.
I wouldn't give them too much credit on getting work done, because the work that this country was even built on were people of color. It wasn't as if you still see a bunch of white men building a building, or building the White House, or building D.C., or building this entire country. We did this. If these white people knew how to get things done, they wouldn't need our help. You wouldn't need slaves. The most superior race does not need no slaves.
Oh, wait, hang on, because we're not saying, hang on, very important. We're not saying superior. I think the point of all that, in fact, I'm going to play Langston Hughes. I'm going to take a time out. And I played this on the broadcast last week, but I mean, it's Langston Hughes. You can't get enough Langston Hughes. I'm going to play for Langston, and this will make my point. We'll be right back.
Sane, and yet, at the same time, attempting to keep something of the humor of the folk Negro, even in the face of a serious situation, I've written this poem called Ku Klux. This particular poem, if I remember correctly, was written in Washington. For a time in 1924-25, I lived in Washington. I worked as a busboy at the Boardman Park Hotel, and it was there that the great poet Vachel Lindsay came to have luncheon one day, and I saw him in the dining room, and so I quickly wrote out 3 of my poems on some scrap paper I found around the pantry somewhere, and I put these poems down beside Vachel Lindsay's plate, muttered something about, I like your poetry, and I'm trying to write poetry too. I went away. I was very shy in those days. I guess still I'm shy in a sense, particularly when it comes to celebrities. Well, I never saw Vachel Lindsay again. He was reading his poems that night in the little theater of the Boardman Park Hotel, but at that time in Washington, colored people could not go to the theaters. We couldn't buy tickets to the National or anywhere else except theaters in the Negro neighborhoods. And so I couldn't go to hear Vachel Lindsay read his poems, and I didn't know until the next morning what happened at that program. When I got out to the Boardman Park Hotel about 7 o'clock the next morning, going to work, the head waiter said to me, there are some reporters waiting for you in the dining room. I said, reporters waiting for me? What have I done? He said, well, I don't know, but they want to interview you. So I got into my busboy uniform and I went in the dining room, and sure enough, there were a couple of reporters and a photographer. And they said, you've been discovered. And I said, what? And they said, why don't you know Vachel Lindsay read your poems last night to a very distinguished audience of congressmen and literary people, and he says that you're a fine poet. And he says that he has discovered right here in this hotel a busboy who's working as a busboy, but who is also a very good poet. They said, you're discovered, and we want to write about you. So they interviewed me and found out where I went to school and all sorts of things, and what kind of poetry I wrote, and asked me to give them some of the poetry to publish in the paper. And there appeared in the Washington Star an interview which I believe was syndicated across the country. And my picture holding up a tray of dirty dishes in the middle of the Boardman Park dining room was in the paper, and that was my first publicity break. About that time, in Washington, there was held a Ku Klux Klan parade. Down Pennsylvania Avenue, the Klan paraded in white robes and hoods, masks, and I saw this parade myself. I was sort of, well, in a way, moved by it because, of course, the Klan has been the organization that, since emancipation, had terrorized the Negro people in the South, and it seemed rather odd to me that they should be parading down the streets of our capital. And so it was around that time that I wrote this poem called Ku Klux Klan. The poem itself is about a problem which is still not solved in the South, the problem of the Negro and the right to vote. There are some portions of our country where, if you're colored, you practically take your life in your hands when you want to go to the ballot box. Well, in the poem, this young colored man, is telling about what happened to him when he wanted to vote. It goes like this. They took me out to some lonesome place. They said, "Do you believe in the great white race?" I said, "Mister, to tell you the truth, I'd believe in anything if you just turn me loose." The white man said, "Boy, can it be? You are standing there assassin me?" They hit me in the head and knocked me down. Then they kicked me on the ground. A Klansman said, "Nigger, look me in the face and tell me you believe in the great white race."
Context of White Supremacy. I lost my internet signal as well during the program, so it has been a hoot. And this, it looks like, is the broadcast that now has the most live listeners, new record for live listens. So hope everyone will be on their best behavior. But the point of that clip, why I think that poem is so great, again, Langston Hughes, is that it's witty and it's funny, but it is the truth of white supremacy, I think, is what makes that poem. That I've heard people, I think Dr. Welsing, and even Non-Mightywick, when he heard that clip, he said, the contradiction, having a gang of people standing around bullying somebody saying, aren't we great? Say we're great. Tell us we're great, like the contradiction of that. But with the poem, you could take that stance, but what I take from the poem, if I'm in a position where I have anything you want me to say, I will say. As long as I'm in that position, that's what white supremacy means. As long as I'm in a position where you can drag me around the world and make me build anything, teacups, White House, whatever you want, that's white supremacy. And we're still in that position now, and we should be doing everything we can to replace that as soon as possible. And I would say the big step we need right now is to be honest about our position in the system of white supremacy being double whammy. Whatever you say still goes, unfortunately, but I'm doing everything I can to correct that problem.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
There's a saying that I have that I said to a girl that I was kind of dating, and she's obviously a victim that's confused, and I said to her, a prisoner should never have sex with a prison guard. And she went off on me because, she doesn't really like the code book and stuff like that. But that's something I think people should probably remember to illustrate, to people who don't understand. A prisoner can't have sex with a prison guard if the prisoner wants to be free. Sex is only going to make you dependent upon the prison guard.
I would say check your premise. Check where you're starting from all the time. That's what the cow starts off with. Racism, white supremacy, a definition. That's the starting point. So a lot of times when people talk and they start sounding illogical and it's really it's just that illogical. It's because your premise is wrong. So I just say people need to study logic, check your premise, your starting point. Where are you starting from? Either you agree that we live in a system of racism, white supremacy, or you don't. Start.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was done, Gus.
My bad. I forgot I had the other half of that statement. I totally agree. White people get things done. They put their nose to the grindstone and they get things done. We see evidence of that every day, all over the world. The one thing I will say in terms of white people, the conversation about their stability, the time that I have seen white people be very uncomfortable and look rattled when they felt threatened, when they felt that their sense of supremacy was threatened, that's when I've seen white people look, a little unstable. I think the people that are commenting on how Daryl Bain sounded on this program and some of the other white people, the way that I've heard when Mr. Fuller has talked to white people, Dr. Welsing talked to white people, when they don't think, I don't have my niggas under control, that's when I've seen white people, that instability shines through. But that's the thing. Most of the time, their stability is not threatened at all. Most of the white people I see every day, they don't look rattled at all. They are chilling hard and enjoying the practice of racism, white supremacy. But I do think that there have been times where I've seen that instability, and it's been when, I might not have control of my niggas.
Coming from my position, I was married to a white female, so what I can tell you from that experience is it's a front. It's a front. I mean, the briefcase, the suit, everyone is still the same species. The problem is, it's behind closed doors, and how they behave is what most non-white people don't see. But when you live with them and you get underneath, you dig a little deeper, you ask a couple questions, no one's around, and then they really start to tell you something. So and these problems are embedded in them, just like they're kind of embedded in us. But they're not going to tell you in a public forum because they've been taught not to speak in a public forum about their private matters. What stays in the family, what's dirty in the family stays in the family, things like that. They've been taught secrecy. But, me getting mixed up in their world, I was privy to some of the things that was on, my ex-wife's mind, some of my in-laws. But, this was years ago. I don't talk to them now, but they have a lot of mental issues. But but when you meet them and you see them outside, they're going to be walking and smiling and greeting people and talking about the game and this and that. But when you go home with them, it's a completely different story. They're complaining about this all day, complaining about that all day, just like everyone else, but just from a different perspective. So that it's not a bright world and sunny day like we see on the TV and like we see at their offices when they kick their feet up. They got problems too.
I agree. I've seen it myself. They are very ill people.
And all this money,
there's a lot of
wealth, all of this excess that they have, the yachts, the planes, all of this is just to compensate. Because no single person needs their own plane. No single person needs their own boat. No single person needs their own skyscraper or building to make himself feel important but white people. This is the only, I believe, race in the world that writes laws where there's an insurance policy and people can get rich off of people dying. So you see them, you have these, back in the day, you had these sting operations where these white men
who were in large gambling debts and in debts with whatever companies that they had a bad investment in say, hey, I want you to kill my wife, and I want you to kill my kids, and I want you to make it look like an accident, and I'll give you a part of that insurance money. So, I mean, you see the Scott Petersons and the Drew Petersons who married 3 or 4 wives, and it's all about the money. I mean, they're willing to actually kill women and children and their families for money. So, yes, they have their problems. It ain't all, I mean, you have to remember what they do to get that plane and to get that building and to get that yacht and that boat. It ain't pretty, and it ain't hardworking, and it ain't honest.
Yeah, you're right. I agree because I've had white friends and white people I've known. I've seen a lot of things. And it's all about a hustle to get more money, to feed their families. That's the biggest excuse that I've ever heard. I got to feed my family, so I got to do this and do that. Stealing it and then blaming black people for it and all kinds of stuff. So they can get a bigger house, do more drugs, party more, waste money for whatever purpose. But we have to be the victims in order for that to happen, though. To get a lavish lifestyle. I live in Savannah, Georgia. I mean, this place is a really good example of, like, just that type of living it up and spending money and drinking and acting foolish and all that, then going back to acting serious while all the black people are poor. Yeah. It's like Fuller said, it was like the mafia.
Yeah, I think America is probably one of the biggest mobs that have ever come to that this earth has ever seen. The way that it does business is that it sends its senators from both houses of Congress, and it deports into Africa and China and Asia, and you have these committees, different committees and all that. What they say about people of color, about conflict and how they incite conflict within the community, the indigenous population that they're visiting, the way that they supply weapons and incite civil wars in the Middle East, and the way they're using CIA operatives as non-official cover agents all throughout Eastern Europe and Western, just about Eastern Europe to incite conflict and overthrow democratically elected leaders who've been in power for decades, and all of a sudden now there's a sweeping change, all because of America's desire to control the natural resources that these countries possess at very lower rates because they want to make more money. And this is no better than the piracy that they've been doing for the last 6,000 years. And they're doing it with taxpayer money. They're doing it on the pockets of the poor and giving tax breaks to corporations.
Yeah, they're hustlers. I mean, it's just like Columbus, Cortez, DeSoto. Like, I remember hearing Dr. Clark and Dr. Ben and other people talk about how they were just con men and just lied their way to get the native peoples to submit to them. It's a hustle. It's about getting stuff, getting money, getting paid, and that's it. At the end of the day, it's about the life of luxury. It's like watching The Sopranos. That's the main premise of that, just getting a lavish lifestyle. I mean, there was an episode of The Sopranos in which there was a black preacher who was in cahoots with the mafia, and he was leading some kind of labor revolt or something like that. And the mob came up, and they had, like, baseball bats and all this stuff, and they were beating all these people down. And at the end of the day, Tony Soprano goes to the black preacher and gives him his kickback. It was a setup. Just to keep those black men from being a part of a labor union. I mean, that's just...
I had a question.
That's just how it is.
No, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm done.
I had a question for everybody. I agree with part of what everybody's saying, and I'm wondering, I asked this question, do you think it's constructive for us to focus on white people's instability, or does it help us to develop an emotional distance by thinking of them as unstable, or is it kind of like just non-constructive? What do you guys think?
Yeah, since I brought it up, I think it's constructive because black people are always reminded, this is the other side of this, black people are always told that we're emotional people. We're very reactive to emotions. When someone says certain words, we get offended, we can't think, we act crazy. We beat each other up. We show off to each other. We blackmail or black female get into fights. That we're so emotional that all we are is emotions, that we're not thinking people. And I think that's wrong. I think it's illogical. We are thinking people. We started the first culture, the science, and the arts and stuff like that. We couldn't possibly just be a bunch of emotions, a bunch of anger and happiness and stuff like that. We're trained to be that way. So I said that so that black people would get out of that mindset of we're just basketball players and musicians and comedians and buffoons, and for us to start being serious and put our thinking caps on and start to do things and to realize that the people who really are emotional, are white people. They're the ones who are really emotional, and we have all the problems, all the baggage. We're just victims, and we need to just get out of this and think our way out of it. And stop living up to myths like that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you think about who needs more psychological help, is it the oppressor or is it the victim? And who's going to help who? Because if we're the original people of Earth, which we are, we've had plenty of time to get our differences out. We've had war amongst each other as a family growing up, being the first people on the Earth, but we didn't carry it on, because if we carried it on, none of us would have been here. We all would have just wiped each other out. Obviously, we came to some reconciliation and didn't go around exterminating and enslaving other cultures and other nations. Other nations and cultures stem from us. Therefore, we know how to get along. So we're not the ones that are emotionally unstable at all. You don't see black people going out of Africa trying to conquer the entire world, and you never have.
The problem is white people. Like Gus has it on the website, on the stage. They can't help us. That's why I say they're too messed up to help us. They can't even help themselves. Even the ones that would try to help us and try to do something, they're no match to a person who's ready to die for the white race and die for white people and all that kind of stuff. Those are the people who are really the people who white people who want to so-called help us, they'll just get killed anyways, like John Brown or somebody.
I think that the problem goes even deeper than that, because white supremacy is within every culture now. Now it's within non-white people as well. We originally blamed white people, but now it's starting to affect non-white people, and now non-white people are eating each other and are putting each other in jail and are shooting each other in the streets. So white people have been on their job, and they thought about this. And they thought that even though they're dead and gone, they still wanted the system to continue. But what we need to do is break the system while they're alive to show them that a system that they have designed will fail and is designed to fail. And we can beat this system if black, red, brown, red and yellow would actually work together instead of against each other to get rid of this system and replace it with a system of justice. And I think part of the plan is that we have to get together and decide
what are we going to do with these white people? We must ask ourselves that question. Because they know what we know what they want to do with us. We know what they want to do with us. We need to know what we need to do with them.
That goes way back to that big controversy that was on the show a while back, though. I think that subject, we should even really be, like, talking about that, because it even says in the code book, don't talk about that particular subject, though, genocide and stuff like that. We're not constructive right now. We really can't do that. Now, we can't do it now, in the future maybe, but right now it's about justice.
Oh, yeah, no one's saying genocide, but what are we going to do with them? I'm not saying we have to, advocate violence. I'm just saying when we come together, as a parent is going to govern a child, an immature, petulant child, there's a meeting. There's a meeting between two parents. What are we going to do about this child? The white man and white woman are the youngest people on this planet. They are relatively new compared to black man and black woman on this planet. So as two parents of a petulant child, what are we going to do to discipline this child who has misbehaved? That's what I meant.
I think that would take like the people who are actually finally finished the problem to deal with that. We can't. I think it's too early to talk about that right now. I have ideas, but I don't want to get into those ideas. I just think right now we should just be focused on countering racism.
But that's what it's about. How else are you supposed to counter racism, but to tell somebody, look, this is what you're misbehaving because of A, B, and C. This is how you need to live your life. This is better than what you've been living because you've been causing hell all over the planet, and it's not working for us, and it's not working for you as well. It will fail because everyone will make sure it fails. No one wants this system but you. So as an elder would teach a young person, you don't have to be polite. We're done being polite. Martin Luther King was trying to be polite. Malcolm X was not trying to be polite. There's a difference in the tone of voice that you need to talk to a certain group of people who've been acting a certain type of way. And talking to them with a smile on your face and, a suit on and crossing your legs and having a form and being civilized and trying to have coffee with them isn't going to work.
Like I said, I don't know what to do as far as the afterwards. That's serious business right now. Because I think inevitably it's going to be something that like I said, you shouldn't probably be talking about that at all. Because the one thing about that subject, though, is that it is really weird, though, that a lot of the white guests who get on ultimately leave that to us to decide to do that, which I think that's really messed up, to put that on us. They say there's no other solution but a final one. I just think that's put us in a very messed up position. Another thing I would like to say is that so different is that I think the word, the concept in the code book of shadow fighting or racial shadowism, where a white person uses a non-white person to hurt non-white people, that word should probably come up a lot more, because that's what we really deal with on a daily basis. We mistreat each other, but really someone's behind all that mistreatment.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
What was your comment? I'm afraid I missed the comment about shadow boxing.
Yeah, about like in the code book, that's the old edition of the code book, is shadow fighting, non-white people fighting each other and are blaming each other for the existence of white supremacy rather than speaking and are acting to eliminate it. You know, like when someone says the president is doing this and doing that, and he should, but really at the same time he's a victim, so how can he really do anything? It's white supremacy.
Or was there a comment about that, or are you just restating something that's in the code book?
No, I'm suggesting that it should probably be a word that should be used a lot more often. It should be used. I don't hear it used enough, you know, by the callers or on websites that do with the code book. You know, that concept is really important in this day and age. It should be brought up more and more and more and more and more. This person isn't to blame. It's really white supremacy is to blame. It's a non-white person.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think the problems, the biggest problem the president's going to be facing is white people. I don't know necessarily why. Well, I do know why, but just looking at my point of view, I would not have a bunch of white men in my ear from Wall Street telling me how to run an entire country.
He's doing what they have him doing. You know, he's like over the code book. It says that a black man that's supposed to be a black male that's supposed to be a manager or CEO is nothing but a messenger. That's all Obama is, and he's a messenger. Just like any one of us is put in a pretend position of authority. You know, a black enforcement official is a messenger. You know, a black teacher, a black pastor, a messenger. You're just a messenger. You know, you don't really actually have an official title. That's all the president is. A messenger. He just does what they tell him to do. The biggest problem is going to probably be if this really happens, is if, you know, white people decide to pick up guns and start to take on the government, and it's going to start all kinds of different Wacos and type of situations all over the country. Because I really think, I've been reading the Kerner report, and I remember reading, going over a few pages ahead of myself, and it talked about different trends, like when the economy is really, really good, you know, then, you know, white people and black people don't have as many, white people don't mistreat black people as much. But when the economy gets bad, then here goes the lynchings and the hangings and stuff like that all over the place. And if the economy gets really, really bad, and with their population getting older and smaller, there's a lot of mistreatment and there's a lot of hurt that's going to be coming down the pipe, I think. Especially with the population getting smaller and the economy getting bad. You usually blame non-white people for economic problems. And they're going to probably have miscegenation laws and all kinds of stuff. So a lot of non-white people who are involved with white people may end up in jail just for having been involved with a white person sexually. That might happen. But I think the Kerner report is a really good book to read, to figure out why things are the way that they are and look at the trends and the statistics of what happens when the economy is bad and the economy is good and employment is up and it goes down, you know. And they talk about racial riots, because that book is about, you know, race riots, the race riots of 1967. And they talk about the history of race riots. And the majority of race riots were really white on black race riots, where white people would beat up black people in the streets from watching movies like Birth of a Nation or stuff like that. And any slight provocation in the Civil War, this was going on back before the country was even formed. This race riot. White people would get out, beating black people in the face, hanging them in the streets. You know, I mean, people forget who we're really dealing with. We're not dealing with. A lot of the average black person think of themselves as really tough and hard, and they forget. I remember Mr. Fuller that was talking. He was telling me, like, where I'm at right now, Savannah, they were hanging black people almost every day. This is a slave port back in the day. You know, this is not a joke. Man. These people could snap and end up doing some very bad things all over again if enough pressure is put on them. That's why I say they're emotionally unstable. When something really terrible happens, who knows what they're capable of doing? We're not strong enough to take them on and head-to-head violence like that. No.
I just think like the country can go in two directions. If the country goes in a direction where the economic situation gets much better, and we do create jobs, like a lot more jobs, and a lot more people are getting paid more money, and people are able to afford more things, and the economy starts to progress, then you'll probably see less of a radicalism within white people that you see now, maybe a little less, and it's starting to really die out too. It's still there, but it's starting to die out, and and to be perfectly honest, as a black man, when Obama started running, when the president started running, I knew that when he was elected, that there was going to be white people that were going to be mad, that just could not let that fly. So I already knew that's how crazy white people were going to get. Now you've seen maybe some of that go away. You're even starting to see Glenn Beck end this show. You know, he'll probably still do something else, but he won't be on TV. But you have this. It can either go that way where the economy improves, or if it doesn't, and we continue to have outsourcing, and we continue to have factories closed, and then we continue to have tax cuts for the rich, balanced on the backs of those who don't have any money, and we continue to cut spending on unemployment and Medicare and Social Security benefits that older people still receive, and out of all of these things, we get no job creation at all, or stagnant growth. Then you're going to start to see a lot of civil unrest. You're going to see a lot of violent outbreaks, because a lot of people who are within a populated area competing for the same job and are not able to get that job, it's only a matter of time. It is a ticking time bomb before someone has to resort to an illegal act or violent act in order to get the basic resources that they need for their own families. And if they don't feel that they can get the proper access because they feel someone or some particular group is denying them that access, then that's when you have violent retribution. And it's been recorded time and time again throughout history. And that's what we're kind of on the brink on. We're on the brink on people actually taking to the streets to rob for what they need, especially because of gas prices and the price to transport goods, make the cost of the goods go up.
Yeah. Well, that reminds me of what I remember Josh Wickett had told me about this Russian guy who made a documentary. It's Dmitry Orlov, I think is his name. He talked about how the Soviet Union broke down, and he said that if a similar thing could happen or is happening to the United States, so there's going to be less transportation, and everything is going to change. And one of the things that you notice in Russia is that there are lots and lots and lots of neo-Nazi gangs all over the place that are very violent. They beat people up at a whim, So I just think that if things are getting worse, people really need to be prepared to defend themselves and be prepared to be mentally aware. It looks all right now, but it could get worse. It could get worse than this.
I think if we do get a second term with this president, that he's going to have to change his administration out. I mean,
for me, I would want to see non-white people in the position of the White House, only because they have more credibility with other people in the world when it comes to international business and getting things done.
I don't think that could make a difference on the white supremacy. As long as white people, it could have been John McCain and a bunch of former Klansmen. I mean, everything would just be the same way that it is now, probably. They just have a different face on it. Obama is a messenger. It's racial shadow boxing. It's a put on, you know. He's not really in charge of anything. I don't think any president directly is in charge. Someone gives them what they need to do, but especially for a non-white person that's got a government title, that's not his. You know, it doesn't matter who they put in there. They could put Donald Brazil there. They could put all kinds of people there. It wouldn't change anything. They got Eric Holder. You know, I think Eric Holder's track record on certain things is not perfect. You know, I think as far as countering racism is concerned, you know, because he has a job. He doesn't want to lose his job. You can't take a job away from a black male. I mean, that's the worst thing you could do almost. One of the worst things. They're not going to do anything to lose their jobs, but they're not going to make white people unhappy. They're not going to make white people, you know, feel bad. They're going to do what they got to do to keep that job. That's what that's about. It's like every one of us most likely has a job or had a job where you had to deal with the system and do what the system told you to do, whether you wanted to or not. That's President Obama. That's what he has to do. If they say to go to war with Libya, a total war, he'll just do it. Wherever he gets his orders from. Whatever racist suspect is telling him what to do or giving him this policy or whatever it is, that's what's going to be. It could be any other. It could be a white person up there. It could be anybody else.
That's true. I did listen to a video about from Louis Farrakhan, who said that it doesn't matter what president that we elect because he is only going to be a figurehead because there is a power behind him that corrupts, and that's what he was saying. He said, you know, Merkel of Germany, you know, you think she's the head of state, but there's another power behind her. You know, you see Tony Blair, the prime minister, you know, you think he's the prime minister, but there's another power behind him, and you know, it's corrupting the actual environment of a functional world. It's actually rot, and very old rot. It's a very old way of doing things, and I believe that white supremacy is a 6,000-year-old system. But these are old things that have to die, and new things have to come about and be born out of that. So, I mean, we have to get rid of this very, very old system that has been established and maintained and refined. We have to break that system and get a completely new system in it. And this new system is not going to be run by white people. It'll have to be run by the majority of this planet, which are non-white people. And that's what I'm saying. We have to come together as a non-white people and decide how these white people are going to behave and how they should be behaving, because their behavior currently is not acceptable. And we can do that tomorrow.